The California Consumer Privacy Act is a law passed by the state of California, meant to go into effect on January 1st, 2020, and is intended to bring some of the privacy protections from other privacy laws seen by the legislature into the state of California and to protect California residents. It's often compared to the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, but does not have the scope that the GDPR does. Companies may need to comply with both if they're collecting personal information about both European residents and California residents. And it's difficult to think about two different laws at the same time sometimes and try to match both. They don't exactly align with each other, so you have to look at both of them at the same time and think who's subject to what. And for companies that find it easier just to provide a single level of protection across their entire customer base, they'll have to consider both when they're thinking about that level of protection. One thing that you could say about the CCPA that, well, it's not going to come into effect until January 1st, 2020. Let's worry about it then. The problem with that is you have to go through a process to understand what kind of personal data you have, how it's being used, how it flows through your company, and taking a look at all of that will take time. You need to go through a process to understand all the data flows of personal data through your company. So if you waited until January 1st, 2020 to start on the process of complying, you will be out of compliance as soon as January 1st. There's also an aspect of CCPA that says you have to disclose to consumers upon request any personal data that has been collected about them in the past 12 months. That's called a lookback. And the lookback clause means that the companies disclosing information, let's say on January 1st, 2020, need to have had records of personal information being kept about individuals starting from January 1st, 2019. So already some of the information being collected today might be something that has to be told to a consumer next year when the law goes into effect. One of the things that other legal professionals may not talk about is the interrelationship between the California Consumer Privacy Act and older laws in the state of California. There are older laws in the state of California that protect the security of information in specific categories. For example, driver's license information, social security numbers, and payment information, payment account information in combination with a PIN or password that can be used together with that financial information. So when you add those security protections with the CCPA privacy protections that would protect that same kind of information, all of a sudden, for those specific types of information, you're starting to see something that looks more like GDPR as a whole.